I will share some of my insights about river carp rigs. I will cover various fishing situations, fish feeding habits, and so on. It should be a good one, so please stick around. Basically, when fishing for carp on the river, you will find yourself in one of the two possible situations. The first one will be when the flow will not affect your main line. Basically, you will be fishing in a still water then. And in these situations, any basic or standard carp rig will work. All these short up to 30 centimeter rigs are absolutely fine. This is because you will be able to conceal your main line on the bottom of the river, because the flow will not affect it. The second situation you might find yourself in is when the flow will be affecting your main line, and this will create you quite a few big problems. In most situations you won't be able to use backleads, because quite often you will be chucking across the river towards some snags, etc. And you will want to have the main line to be as direct to the lead as possible. And if you would be using backleads, it would mean that the line is not direct and you would not be able to pick up on the fish in time. And the fish most likely would end up in the snags, and that's no good. Also, rivers quite often do carry quite a bit of rubbish, really small branches, pieces of old leaves, some grass, etc. And all that stuff would get stuck on the main line. And when the bunch of that stuff would be big enough, actually the flow would move most likely your rig without you knowing about it. And that's just not good angling. So backleads are no-no. So in most situations, you will have your rod up in the air to have as little line in the water as possible, so the flow would not be able to affect it as much. And obviously it creates you a problem because your main line will be close to the rig and off the floor, so the fish will be able to see it. If the fish will come quite close to the rig. And how to overcome this issue? Basically, there are two main ways. The first one is to cast downstream as much as possible, and the second one is to use much longer hook links. Actually, it's not very easy to explain just by talking, so I will grab a piece of paper and will do some drawings for you. Okay guys, as you can see, I have clean sheet of paper, eraser and pencil. Let's draw some bits. Okay, that's my river. I have a bush on the other side, just here. I'm fishing here, and I want my rig to be somewhere here, okay? So that's my rod, and I will draw my rig here now. That's my lead, and that's my hook bait. So the flow is going from my left to my right, as you can see. So the line will be affected obviously by the flow, and it will create a bow in the line. Just like that. Then the hook link will be always in the same direction as the flow is going. Obviously, when the rig will be settling, the flow will make sure that the hook link and the hook bait is falling away from the lead. In that kind of fashion, it will just fold it down. Okay, so as you can see now, we have the hook bait just here, boilie, meat or whatever, bunch of maggots, whatever you will be using for carp really. in your situations. So as you can see now, the line from here to here will be off the bottom. It will not be on the bottom. So feeding fish will always be coming to feed upstream. See those carp, bobble, bream, they always feed upstream. They are not such a good swimmer that they could feed just by swimming downstream. So I will try to draw a carp now. That will do. That's carp size, as you can see, and dorsal fin. So the fish will be always moving upstream to feed, or feeding fish will be always moving upstream. So as you can see, when the fish will arrive at this point by the hook bait, most likely it will see the main line which goes from your rod to the lead, and this distance from the lead to the hook bait or hook link's length, or how long the hook link is crucial really. So you want to have it a little bit longer. If it will be very, very short, let's say if the hook bait would be here, when the fish will come to that, let's say here, it will be able to see the main line quite easily, and most likely it will spook of that main line. So the hook link needs to be longer. I have found that it needs to be about 60 centimeters. In most situations it will be long enough. Also, let's assume that we have one bush here as well, so downstream, and one upstream. Let's make it a little bit nicer, those bushes. So if you would be casting upstream, right, just here, so let's draw the lead and the hook bait. So let's draw that main line just like that, and the hook link. As you can see, when the fish will come to this more or less spot, it will be equal distance from the fish's eyes to the main line and to the hook bait, and also the main line will be exactly in the side of the fish's eyes, so it will be visible quite well to the fish. So that's a big no-no. Then the same situation here, or different situation here. So that's my lead, that's my hook bait, hook link, and my main line. Now the situation is quite opposite, as you can see. So when the fish will arrive towards the hook bait, it's not likely that the fish will be able to see the main line, even though the main line will be off the bottom because the flow will be affecting it. So it means, see that from here, or from here to main line, it's like the maximum distance, and here the distance, let's say for coming fish from downstream, it's quite small one. So always you want to be casting downstream when fishing for carp or any fish really, and never upstream. So I hope this little drawing will explain something to you. Okay, so to back up what I have explained already in this video, I have to say that I did catch a few carp myself whilst fishing for bobble and using long hook links. Obviously it means that carp are catchable on long hook links in moving water. Also, if you are following some bobble anglers on social media or else, you will see that they often do catch carp as well whilst fishing for bobble and using long hook links. Also, what I have noticed that when people switch and start using short rigs whilst fishing in the flow, they do not catch any carp. All they can catch is bream and bobble. But that's it. I think I have talked enough. Let's have a look how to tie my recommended rig for carp fishing on the river. I will start with the leader. Basically, as your main line will be off the bottom or in the middle of the water more or less, you want to be using less visible line, and the least visible line is fluorocarbon one. So I would advise to use 0.30. That's really a bare minimum. Much better to use much thicker line. So in this case, that's a 0.60, and that's my favorite actually diameter for river carping. It's very strong and very durable as well. Okay, but for this demonstration, I won't use fluorocarbon line because you would not be able to see very well what I'm doing. Instead, I will be using dark and thick line for my leader. So I will grab a basic carp clip. Obviously, if the swivel is a little bit too tight in the clip, all you do then, just you want to grab a pair of pliers and squeeze it down a little bit so that the rig would be safe still. That's okay. So then all you do is just put the clip onto the leader line. And by the way, to attach the leader onto the main line, there are many different knots. It will depend which main line you will be using. If you will be using like braid, then you want to use like Albright's knot and plenty others. I will leave a couple of knots I'm using when it comes to connecting fluorocarbon to braided lines. Okay, so I will attach my swivel to my leader using Grinner's knot. Does not really matter which one it will be, as long as it's strong and reliable. That's perfect. Obviously you want to wet the knot just before pulling the knot tight. Okay, we'll remove the tag end. Okay, that bit is done, nice and simple. And by the way, I have a little piece of sleeve which I will use to attach my hook link a little bit later. Okay, so now I have my clip ready to go. I will grab my lead and attach to my clip. Obviously, when fishing for carp in the river, you want to be using a little bit heavier leads than you need really, just to make sure that hooking properties are as good as you can get. Okay, let's put this assembly aside now. Now, when it comes to the hook link, right, I will be using combi rig, just much longer, about 60 centimeters in total. I would say that the best length on most rivers will be about 60 centimeters total hook link length. So stiff part and soft part. Again, when it comes to the stiff part, you want to be using fluorocarbon. Again, I'm using quite often the same diameter for my leader and for my stiff part of my hook link. I'm not afraid to be using 0.60 diameter for my hook link. But again, it can be a little bit thinner as well. But 0.30, that's a minimum. But for this demonstration, as you would not be able to see that well, I will be using, again, dark or black thick line. So what I will do first, I will grab, I hope you will be able to see because it's clear, about 5 centimeters of tubing, silicone tubing. Probably inner diameter is about 1 millimeter or so, and we'll put it onto the line just like that. Then I will tie a small figure of fate knot to create a small loop to attach my hook link to my lead clip. Okay, that's great. We'll trim off the tag end. Now I will slide my tube onto that knot. This little tube is not like necessary, but I have found that like in these situations when you will have a tangle on your rig, this little tube actually will help you land the fish in these situations when you have a tangle on the rig. And that's great, because what will happen, this little actually I will show you. I will attach this part of my hook link to the clip already. So I would be able to show you a little bit better what I mean. Okay, as you can see, nice and simple. Little piece of silicone or rubber sleeve goes over the top, and that's it. So what happens sometimes is that this hook link goes around a couple times often, and if you would have like a bare line, so it would be more or less like line to line action, it would cut through itself, especially when you will have a fish on. But when you have a silicone, it does not happen. And actually I landed a couple of fish when I had like a tangle, when my hook link was tangled around the leader. I'm not saying that this rig is like, is tangling often. It's not the case at all. Actually, it's a very good rig, because if you think about it, you have thick fluorocarbon, which is also very, very stiff here, and thick and stiff fluorocarbon here as well. And you need that kind of free moving part here, because as I shown in that drawing, as you can see, when the flow will be affecting your rig, you want your rig or your hook link to be able to fall with the flow. You don't want your hook link to be fighting the flow. And this little movement here will do exactly that. It will allow the flow to pick up the hook link, and it will enable the hook link to fall nicely with the flow. That's ideal. Okay, so now we have this part done. The next part is a little bit, or the most probably complicated when it comes to this rig. Obviously it involves using some soft braided line as a soft part of the hook link. You want to be using about 0.20 diameter of braid, or 25 pounds, 20 pounds will be fine. You want to grab about 25 centimeters of it, just like that. Then you want to form a tiny little loop for your hook bait, or to use as a stop to put through this little loop. I like to have like a double top loop, because then it means it will never get undone. Small loop is done now. I will trim off the tag end. Next part is to grab a little piece of very slim, that will be probably, I don't know, 0.1 millimeters internal diameter sleeve, and then you want to use like a very fine latched needle to put it onto the braided line. Just like that. Then you want to use a hook according to the bait you are looking to use. I like to use these curved shank hooks on the river, because they seem to hold the sharpness quite well in sizes 8 to 10, so relatively small hooks. And really we'll use just a very basic knotless knot to attach my hook onto that braided line. You want to be very careful when putting the braid or pulling the braid through that sleeve, because you will snag with the hook. No matter how delicate you are, you will still snag a few threads of that braid. And the easiest way I have found is just when you have your sleeve on the hook, just pull where that loop is, just little by little, and once it's free, you know that then you can work further. Okay, again, the length of the hair should be according to the baits you are looking to use. In this case I will go with about 20 millimeters, and as I said, basic knotless knot, 5, 6, 7 times, or wraps will be fine. Couple back and we are good to go. That's it. Now I will grab stiff part of my hook link and attach my braided part or soft part to that stiff part using Albright's knot. Again, you want to have that soft part to be 7 to 10 centimeters, will be optimal for river carping. Couple times back. And back through that monofilament or fluorocarbon loop. Obviously you want to wet the knot as any other when pulling it tight. If the braided does not want to go or slide down, you can help a little bit. And then just to check it if it's proper and tight. And that's it. I will remove the tag ends now. Basically that's my river bubble rig, just shorter, a little bit shorter. As I mentioned, you want to have the length of the hook link. I don't even know if I'll be able to fit it into the frame. So you want it to be about 60 centimeters, the length of the hook link. So about 7 centimeters or so of that soft part, and the remaining 53 or so centimeters of that stiff part. So that's the optimal rig for carp fishing on the river. But it'll be it from me for today. I hope you'll find this video useful. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.